Mayorkas' impeachment, whether it's the senators being sworn in or maybe nothing, you know, that could happen. So stay tuned. We're going to find out together what's going on. Chat, come on in. Welcome. I can't speed it up because we are live, baby. We'll be making adjustments, little tiny adjustments like that. Just making the thing fit more squarely in the center.
The Senate will come to order. The chaplain, Dr. Barry Black, will lead the Senate in prayer.
Come on in, everybody.
Let us pray. Eternal God, giver of every good and perfect gift, use our lawmakers today to cause justice to roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. May our senators strive to do what is right, love mercy, and live humbly for your glory. Guide them to turn their ears to your wisdom as you illuminate their hearts with your truth. May they call on you for direction, depend on your prevailing providence, and defend the truth regardless of the consequences. Grant that their faithfulness to you will be like the light of morning at sunrise, like a morning without clouds, and like the sun gleaming on new grass after rain. We pray in your glorious name. Amen.
Amen. All right. What's
Please
up,
join me in
Corinne?
reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Hey, still with us? How's it going? How's everybody? Sorry about the kids stomping around upstairs. I think she's not a fan
The clerk will read a communication
of
to the
politics.
Senate.
Just kidding. That's my kid. She has no idea.
Washington, D.C., April 17th, 2024. To the Senate,
thank you
under
so
the
much, Sean.
provisions of Rule 1, Paragraph 3 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, I hereby appoint the Honorable John W. Hickenlooper, a senator from the state of Colorado, to perform the duties of the chair. Signed, Patty Murray, President pro tempore.
Under the previous order, the leadership time is reserved. Morning business is closed. Under the previous order, the Senate will resume consideration of the motion to proceed to H.R. 7888, which the clerk will report.
Motion to proceed to calendar number 365, H.R. 7888, an act to reform the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978.
See, I thought they said they
Mr.
were going to
President.
go right into getting sworn
Majority
in
Leader.
for the
Mr. President,
Mayorkas
this
impeachment
afternoon,
trial. Maybe this is what he's gonna
senators
say.
will come to the floor
Here we
and be
go.
sworn in as jurors in the impeachment trial of Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Yesterday, the Senate received the impeachment House managers who read the 2 articles against the Secretary. Today, the trial will commence, and we will be in our seats as jurors for the 3rd time in 4 years. But this time, senators will provide as jurors in the least legitimate, least substantive, and most politicized impeachment trial ever in the history of the United States. The charges brought against Secretary Mayorkas fail to meet the high standard of high crimes and misdemeanors. To validate this gross abuse by the House would be a grave mistake and could set a dangerous precedent for the future. For the sake of the Senate's integrity and to protect impeachment for those rare cases we truly need it, senators should dismiss today's charges. So when we convene in trial today, to accommodate the wishes of our Republican Senate colleagues, I will seek an agreement for a period of debate time that would allow Republicans to offer a vote on trial resolutions, allow for Republicans to offer points of order, and then move to dismiss. Let's not kid ourselves about what's going on today. The impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas has nothing to do with high crimes and misdemeanors, and everything to do with helping Donald Trump on the campaign trail.
Nuts.
Secretary Mayorkas has not been accused of treason or accepting bribes or unlawfully attacking our elections or anything of the sort. He has not been accused of criminal wrongdoing. He did not blackmail a foreign power to dig dirt on a political opponent, nor did he incite a violent mob to wage an insurrection.
Let me know if the music
against
is
the peaceful
too loud.
transfer of power. Instead, the hard right wants to exploit the supremely serious matter of impeachment
Schumer.
for the sake of cable news hits and content for social media. This is an illegitimate and profane abuse of the U.S. Constitution. The framers were clear. Impeachment should never be used to settle policy disagreements. Legal scholars from across the ideological spectrum have agreed to the same for decades. Even the Wall Street Journal editorial board,
If I could skip
the
forward,
darling
I
of the
would.
conservative
We're live.
intelligentsia, argued a few
Usually
months
there's a little
ago
delay
that, quote,
sometimes.
a policy dispute doesn't
But this
qualify
is just,
as a high crime.
it's hard to
and
sit through
misdemeanor,
BS.
Unquote. If our House Republicans want to have a debate about the border, Democrats are glad to have it. But instead of wasting time on impeachment, we should debate bipartisan legislation to secure our border once and for all.
This guy's nuts.
In fact, that is precisely what we tried to do in this chamber just a few months ago. I worked with a handful of Democrats and Republicans to draft the strongest border security bill to come before the Congress in decades. Before
Even
Donald Trump
Democrats,
and the
not
hard right
political,
killed it in its tracks.
regular people.
It was everything that what Republicans could have wanted and more. A bill to hire more Border Patrol agents, reform asylum, fight the fentanyl crisis, and create brand new powers for the president to close the border. It was strong stuff.
It's like a caricature.
And the National Border Council, the National Border Patrol Council, the Chamber of Commerce, and the ultimate conservative Wall Street Journal editorial board all threw their support behind our bipartisan bill. If both chambers would have voted on it, I am certain it would have passed
for term limits
and be signed by the president. But that's precisely why Donald Trump and the hard right were afraid of it. Instead of providing a solution to the border, Donald Trump and his MAGA radicals want to exploit the border for political gain. And today,
put someone else in charge.
This trial,
how about that? Resign. If he resigns, then there's no reason.
Likewise, exploit our Constitution.
No reason to impeach.
And try to gain.
So there's been 22 impeachments, and the Senate's taken each one to task, except for when the person resigns who's being impeached.
Exercise. One that both conservative and liberal legal scholars agree
resign.
Fails to meet the high standard demanded by impeachment.
Secretary.
So I will say it again. Impeachment should never, never be used to settle policy disagreements.
Like
that
10 million
would set a
more people in the country than there should be.
Precedent for the Congress and could throw our system of checks and balances into endless cycles of chaos.
And I believe that's more than half the
now on
state's
Senate business.
Individual
The
populations.
Senate might be stuck addressing the House's bogus impeachment charges, but that doesn't erase the fact that we have a lot of work to do in the Congress in the upcoming days.
Good, Josh.
Before April 19th, the Senate must come to an agreement on FISA reauthorization. Last night, I filed cloture on the motion to proceed to the House-passed FISA bill, and that vote is set to take place tomorrow. Democrats and Republicans are going to have to reach an agreement if we want to get FISA reauthorization done before the deadline. Otherwise, this very important tool for ensuring our national security is going to lapse, and that would be unacceptable. The House has not made our jobs any easier with this bogus impeachment trial, But that doesn't let us off the hook to work together quickly to get FISA reauthorization done. On another important matter, we are still waiting to see how Speaker Johnson and House Republicans will proceed on the National Security Supplemental Package.
No comment.
One way or another, I hope, I fervently hope, that we can finally finish the job in the next couple of days. But that is not certain and will depend a lot on what the House does. The entire world is waiting to see what House Republicans will do about aid to Ukraine, aid to Israel, humanitarian assistance, and aid to the Indo-Pacific. Putin is watching very closely to see if America will step up and show strength or slink away from a friend in need. And anyone who thinks the war in Ukraine is just a regional conflict in Eastern Europe, the Chinese Communist Party would beg to differ. If President Xi sees America waffle in helping Ukraine, he may conclude
we're still talking about the Ukraine.
We will similarly get cold feet in the Indo-Pacific. Congress must finish the work on the supplemental once and for all.
They are dying.
The time for waiting and delay has long been over. I urge House
what were once the major media markets of our country, New York, Chicago, LA.
To get this aid passed. The security of America, of our friends abroad, and Western democracy itself, demands that we act.
So 100.
Now, later today, President Biden will call for the tripling of tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from China. This is a strong and decisive response to continued unfair trade practices by China. I've been a loud and fervent advocate of higher tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminum imports for years. When I first became senator, I saw for myself how unfair Chinese practices were carving away at American production and American jobs. The deck has long been stacked against U.S. steel and aluminum workers for years because of the Chinese government. For China, the equation's simple. They overproduce steel and aluminum with the help of subsidies and low-cost labor, then flood markets with these cheap products, and then dominate any competition and reap the profits. American businesses end up falling further and further behind. Critically, the president is also calling for action to prevent companies from routing steel and aluminum imports through Mexico in an attempt to circumvent the tariffs. There is perhaps no industry that has felt the impact of China's unfair trade practices than shipbuilding. The U.S. was once a global leader, but now we produce less than 1% of the world's commercial ships.
I did not know
Over the last 2 decades,
China
has dramatically increased its dominance of the shipbuilding industry, putting American businesses and workers at risk and jeopardizing our national security. So the president's announcement today is a welcome step to getting American steel and aluminum businesses back on the level playing field with China.
I don't know if this is true, but I heard over the past few years they literally crisscrossed across the country buying up all of our recycled aluminum and steel. I mean, I could be completely wrong about that. I might have read that in like a Lee Child novel or something.
Steelworkers in places like Western New York and Messina helped forge the steel and aluminum that built America's bridges and buildings. And they stand ready alongside other manufacturing powerhouse communities in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and elsewhere, who built America from the ground up. So I commend the president for a strong and decisive call to triple the tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from China, and Democrats will keep working to bring American
what I'm saying is it possible that they're selling us our own steel and aluminum back to us? Is that?
And finally, Mr. President,
is it possible?
Today we're mourning a colleague and former member of this chamber, Bob Graham, who passed away yesterday at the age of 87.
Senator Graham, no.
Bob and I only served for a few years, but it didn't take long to realize he was a man of great integrity. He was devoted. He was a devoted public servant who dedicated his entire life to his beloved Florida, from the state legislature
he was the governor.
to the governor's mansion to the halls of the United States Senate. Our prayers are with his family and his loved ones.
I think it could be a little bit of both, Warren and Josh. You know, they make a better product, A. B, they sell it back to us.
Mr. President.
Material science.
You know, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of S-Con Res 33.
The clerk will record.
S-Con Res 33, concurrent resolution authorizing the use of the rotunda of the Capitol and so forth.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed.
I ask unanimous consent that the concurrent resolution be agreed to. The motion to reconsider
So
be
I know I'm
considered
definitely
laid
here for
upon
like
the
the
table with
impeachment
no
proceedings.
intervening
For anybody
action or
else who
debate.
is, it seems like that's
Without
going to be
objection.
happening after
I note
lunch.
the absence of a quorum.
I don't know. Don't let me.
Clerk will call the roll.
I don't have a crystal ball, but he said this afternoon that they're going to be sworn in as jurors. And so, for those of you who are kind of wondering what the impeachment process looks like, the House investigates and decides whether to really impeach or not. It's kind of like a grand jury proceeding, and then the Senate acts as like the trial, and they can either kick him out. There's another scenario. This isn't criminal. These aren't criminal proceedings. And the third scenario is they could acquit him. He could be acquitted. It's going to kill me. I have it open right here in an impeachment proceeding. So, work doing pipe inspections. They make better products. I believe it. I feel like a lot of our quality, in American manufacturing has gone downhill over the past decade or two. When was it in its heyday is the question. Really. Really. Let's see, I can't quite see my monitor. Right, okay. So, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security is impeached by Congress. There are two primary consequences that may result from such proceedings. The first potential outcome is removal of the Secretary from office. The second consequence is disqualification from holding future public office. That was the second consequence. I forgot about that one. And then, but the third thing could be they acquit him. And it seems like they're not even going to go there. It seems like they're just going to be like, they're going to read something, be like, da, 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 and then like, are we even going to take this up? No. All right. Done. It's like the tone. Maybe there's some pomp and circumstance, parliamentary procedure, but everybody's talking like they're just going to not take this up. Or maybe they take up the whole thing and then it comes down to a vote, and at the end, the vote is in favor of Mayorkas. There was a good saying yesterday. Senator Kennedy had, that was, oh God, if you have the votes, you can make a koala eat hot peppers and like it. That was a good one. So, Warren, I am also curious if the, let's say, can they buy our recycled aluminum and steel and, put it through a process and make it better? Or is it just they have better processes and stuff that they're dealing with, over there in China? Right. Yeah. Good. I don't know. That's future 2074. How does tariffs help us? All it's going to do is drive up Chinese prices and make our prices for everything go up. So, I mean, right. It's supposed to be a punishment, right? On China. We're punishing China. But this is like, this is all, that's their tool on the left. It's tax. It seems like one of their only tools. They can tax, they can weaponize the DOJ, and they can adopt extreme policies and shove them down everybody's throats. And so we were talking about the material sciences of the aluminum and steel that China did buy up, or maybe they refined on their own, and why it's better. And we're talking about they have better processing and better high quality of inspections for a better grade. I mean, here's the thing. When you see pictures of like Chinese factories, they look like they are run like a tight ship. Is that, they run a tight ship is the right expression? Yeah. I mean, some of them are funny because you got the workers who like figured it out and just are barely doing their job, but also doing something else. But in other factories where you have like that oversight and quality control, holy cow. Yeah, I can see that. Depends on level of refining. Right. That makes a lot of sense. But just, I mean, I have to imagine, like everything else in this country, a quality has gone down in such a, what is that? Partially COVID, partially checking out. I don't know. I mean, morale is low because of this administration. That's for sure. So maybe it goes back up. Material sciences is important. I think, if I'm not mistaken, material sciences, this isn't exactly true. It's one of the reasons Napoleon, right, his troops failed on their march into, was it Russia or was it Prussia? Or I forget exactly. But their buttons, right? Their buttons didn't hold up under extreme weather conditions and other parts of their uniform. And then also, this is a little more in the weeds here, but in World War II, I'm not 100% sure, chat, so correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously material sciences behind, weapon production and not just refining metals, but also fuels was one of the reasons we were such a powerhouse in World War II. I think. Can't survive on pennies in America, taxation without representation. Yeah, we are taxed all the way down. And if you're in a state like New York or California, it's double, right? I mean, if you're in somewhere like South Dakota or Florida, there's no real state income tax, so you're able to breathe. But I remember I worked in New York for a little while. It was a good job, but whoa, taxes. It's like a third, and that was just New York. And so after federal, I think it was like 40%. I could be wrong. And I wasn't in New York City, and the city tax would have been even worse. Yeah. I didn't have a family back then, so that's part of it. It was a grind. So it was a job. It was one of those jobs after I got out of my undergrad, and there was like a path up. I was working in LabCorp processing specimens, but that wasn't what I was actually doing because I was in my own private Idaho in my head. Let me explain. You could have an earbud in and listen to audiobooks, and so I'd be working 8 hours a day, so I can crush one, maybe like half an audiobook a day, and I was working there for a couple years. So it was really great. I got to listen to almost as many audiobooks as I wanted to. And that was, before I had to provide for anybody. So that was all drinking money and audio. It was a good time. But looking back, New York is so oppressive. It's like they turn every citizen into a commodity. You're not a citizen. You're a commodity. How much can they get out of you? And that's not just in taxes. Their law and code and parking enforcement is so aggressive, they're going to get you there too. I don't think, no one escapes, right? They're going to get you parking tickets or codes or violate, they are on that quota system that you hear about. So I don't know, is California the same way? Like in New York, in Florida, when you're driving down the road, it doesn't feel like they're trying to get you. And there's a big difference in that feeling. I remember driving in New York and always looking when the cop is behind me, like in my rearview mirror, oh my God. But in Florida, I know they're not trying to get me. I'm driving safely, no big deal. Why work when the IRS can close their doors whenever they choose, especially on tax day? Dude, yeah. I mean, the whole system it's crazy broken, right? And it's so far from what the founders and framers of the Constitution, envisioned, in my opinion. This has transformed into the thing that they escaped. So, and I'm talking specifically about the Bill of Rights, censoring speech, disinformation, misinformation boards, and telling social media companies what they can and can't publish, and then Operation Mockingbird, where you get the government involved in the news. That's shady, or sus, as the kids say. Go right down the Bill of Rights. They're coming for weapons to defend ourselves. It's like, yes, to some degree, if the government ever became so tyrannical we would need to, that's part of what the Second Amendment's there for, but also to defend ourselves from criminals. How do people not, and people do understand this, because when things got a little sticky, there were lines at gun stores in neighborhoods that don't usually have lines in gun stores. But that's what the Second Amendment's there for. Quartering, I mean, the way things are going, you can imagine that they're going to try to stick troops or, migrants in homes. It's not out of the realm of possibility with this administration. So, that's 3. The 4th, due process, oh man, been stomped on by the Department of Justice, completely weaponized. Sham warrants, the at least 200,000 warrantless queries or searches of American information in the 702 database by the DOJ. I'm sorry. That was unreasonable searches and seizures is 4th. That's 5th is due process. So, but that's unreasonable searches and seizures, I think, does apply to the DOJ's warrantless searches of the 702 database. They're supposed to be searching for spies or foreign actors that are bad. And I'm sorry about switching the 4th and the 5th there. Don't clip it or use it against me. But they're using it against Americans, and those are warrantless searches, right? 5th due process. 6, right to a fair and speedy trial. Well, I don't know. The whole system seems to have been weaponized. So I think the 6th is being stepped on, just like the 4th and the 5th.
Without objection.
As I discussed earlier this week, critical national security authorities under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act are set to expire in 2 days. Today, I'd like to briefly address the newest red herring being raised in opposition to authorizing Section 702.
Dude, you're on your way out. Just
Reauthorization
block
that
it.
passed the House
Come on.
contains scores of important reforms to the FISA process that will enhance accountability at the FBI and protect the rights of American citizens.
Is he even going to recognize that they've abused
It
the heck
also
out of this?
included a necessary fix to the way we authorize the government to lawfully collect communications from foreigners located overseas for a specific intelligence purpose. As part of the standard judicial oversight of the 702 process, the intelligence community has been restricted
Looks like he can just
what
fall
kinds
over
of
right
technology
there.
counts as, quote, electronic communications service providers, end quote, under the statute.
See, this is why I don't
Section
think there is a
702 was
adrenochrome,
written.
because guys like this
The
look
internet
so
was
bad.
in the dark ages compared to how it exists today. Clearly,
What kind of watch you
social
wearing?
media and
It almost looks
internet
like an Orient, but I
communication
know it's not an
usage
Orient.
has changed
His wife is,
dramatically since the earliest
changed.
days of Twitter. And so have the technical mechanisms by which massive packets
Orient
of
is a
data
Japanese
transit the internet.
watch company, I believe. Seiko is Japanese.
As the internet evolved, the
It's
FISA
a
court
Seiko company.
did not allow DOJ on its own to expand the definition of a provider to meet the new realities of contemporary technology. This created a critical unintended gap in our collection ability against overseas foreign targets.
Jeez, he looks bad.
Here's the good news. The House did, on a strong bipartisan basis, what legislatures should do. In fact, a majority of the majority and a majority of the minority voted to change the statute to make sure that our collection ability on foreigners overseas reflects the reality of modern communication. It was a simple fix to update the law to respond to technological change. But to listen to the chicken littles on the left.
Oh, they're the Chicken Littles now. That's hilarious. They've
ACLU
completely
says
stole
this
that
will
from the...
expand warrantless
And it's
surveillance
not the left, by the way. It's
strongly
completely
implies that it will do
bipartisan.
so against Americans
So you know, it's
as
Jim
people
Jordan
about
and Jerry
their daily
Nadler
lives.
together. Should tell you
Demand
something.
Progress, an activist arm of
On the
Arabella
House side.
Advisors, says everyone is a spy
I wonder who on the Senate's
under
gonna...
this
I know who.
provision.
Hawley's against this.
Well, excuse me if I don't take my cues from liberal court packers.
Wow. Court packing, too,
This
huh?
could not be further.
I'm talking about Jim Jordan because that's Jim Jordan
House
saying that this
bill,
was a
Simple
terrible
fix
abuse.
does nothing.
Jim Jordan's my
to
man.
change who gets targeted by Section 702. Foreigners, overseas,
The Chicken
whose
Littles, he
communications are
says.
likely to return important intelligence. The FISA appellate court affirmed this in a decision that predated the legislative fix, saying under Section 702, the government is prohibited from intentionally targeting any person known at the time of acquisition to be located in the United States. Even foreigners located in the United States, even foreigners operating illegally in the United States. The court went on saying, quote, customers using Wi-Fi access provided by a cafe or library, for example,
Man, this
would not
is
be
just
targeted under Section 702,
straight-
regardless of whether the internet
What is it called?
connectivity being
What's one of those
provided
good
is
sleep
considered
meds?
an electronic communications service.
Straight melatonin.
So let me say that again. They would not be targeted under Section 702, nor, contrary to the fears of some of our colleagues, would U.S. persons be at risk of drone strikes as they surf the internet on public internet networks. Nothing has been expanded.
on American
Section 702 still rightly
That's-
only applies to
Oh,
foreigners
God,
overseas.
the drone thing.
All that the House did was
that could
fix
happen.
a dangerous loophole that would have allowed our foreign adversaries to escape the reach of our intelligence services. Trust but verify, right? Well, this bill helps us do precisely that.
It helps
includes
them
significant
search
reforms
Americans that happen to
dramatically
end up in
enhance
this database.
transparency
That's
into
what
how
it does.
Section 702 is used by the intelligence community. It includes important reforms to prevent misuse of the authority
you're
and
killing
require
me.
accountability for any
You're killing my
misuse,
stream, sir.
including new civil and criminal penalties. So, I would urge my colleagues to look at the facts of this latest fear-mongering crusade to soberly examine
It's the
same
exact
classified
opposite.
material
We're saying
our
it's
House
been an
colleagues
abuse and it's
read
dystopic.
that
And they're
explains
saying that if it
this division
expires,
in
we're
detail.
screwed. That's the fear monger.
reject hyperbole and lies and take action
This is
to
just
secure
the
the
Constitution.
homeland.
Bill of Rights.
On a different matter,
And the
we
Constitution.
do have a plan to address migration at the southern border.
How
We're
about
executing it, and we're
impeaching
starting to see the
the
results.
secretary?
Well, those were the words of Secretary of Homeland Security after the Biden administration had been in office for 8 months. But in the past 3 years, they've taken on an altogether greater significance. The administration's plan to address migration, turns out their plan was exactly what then candidate Biden pledged on the debate
Does he
stage,
know what his watch is?
to surge migrants to the border. How did they execute it? By slashing the previous administration's common sense border security policies. No more remain in
When you
Mexico.
search for Mitch McConnell watch,
no more
it does not come up
border
with the
wall
watch that he wears on his
construction.
wrist.
The Secretary Mayorkas
Oh, maybe.
bragged back in 2021 the
few
Biden
pictures
administration had repealed so many border enforcement tools that, quote, it would take so much time to list them. And how about that last part? We're starting to see the results.
How about knowing when
Since
to
this administration
retire?
took office, the surge in illegal
I mean,
arrivals
talk about
at the
another
southern
one.
border
You know,
has
another
set
one
and
that
broken
should have,
new
yeah,
all-time
term limits or
records
something.
several times
Jeez.
over. CBP personnel have worked overtime to contend with a humanitarian and security crisis. And yet, for years, the Biden administration's top concern about the border was not calling it a crisis.
What watch should it
Again,
be?
quote,
What
"We do
watch
not have
would
a plan
fit?
to address migration
Because
at the southern border.
for some reason, I searched for
We're
McConnell's
executing,
watch.
and we're starting to see the results.
Okay, let's see how this is.
Results? Indeed, Mr. President, in the form of a tragic, painful, and unnecessary crisis. Today, it falls to the Senate to determine whether and to what extent Secretary
Future, I
Mayorkas
don't know.
enabled and inflamed this crisis. Under the Constitution and the rules of impeachment, it is the job of this body to consider the articles of impeachment brought before us and to render judgment. The question right now should be how best to ensure that the charges on the table receive thorough consideration. But instead, the more pressing question is whether our Democratic colleagues intend to let the Senate work its will at all. Tabling articles of impeachment would be unprecedented in the history of the Senate. It's as simple as that. Tabling would mean declining to discharge our duties as jurors. It would mean running both from our fundamental responsibility and from the glaring truth of the record-breaking crisis at our southern border. I, for one, intend to take my role as a juror in this case seriously, and I urge my colleagues to do the same.
Oh, Mitch. Okay, leave. It's like an old man you just don't want to look at. It's like, oh, he's too old. Sorry. Is that ageism? He's too old to serve. I believe it. There should be limits. There should be limits.
Baldwin.
I don't care who or what, you know? And I don't know if those are based on cognition or physical standards. Ugh, what happened? What did they do? This is not me. This is them. Okay. So my guess is they're going to go to lunch and then get sworn in after lunch. But it could just be like a mid-afternoon. I doubt that, though. Who's going to pop in next? So you have the majority leaders, and we're in the Senate. I forget. The majority leader, the minority leader. Who next? They usually have some sort of rank and order that they go in. So who are the people that carry in the podiums? What is that? What is that, you know? What job is that? Is it a page, an intern? Ugh. No thank you. Because you know there are abuses. Okay, where did we leave off? I think it was 7th. Trial by jury in civil cases. So maybe the 7th no, has that been stepped on? Chat, if you let me know if if this administration has stepped all over the 7th, I could probably think of something. Civil cases, everything they're bringing up Trump for. Was that in the Southern District of New York? Were those were criminal charges? Yeah, I don't know. Let's find out together. Anyways, eighth cruel and unusual punishment, which is exactly what they did to Trump. As far as it's cruel and unusual to take, try to go after someone's entire assets, as much as money as they can for the purpose of, crippling them for running for president. That's, I absolutely. And they filed that motion, I believe, to an appellate court. It's hard to keep track of all the cases. So, non-enumerated rights. Yeah, those, anything that we kept for ourselves, they've clawed away slowly at as much as they could. Rights to the states, powers reserved to the states, 10th. Okay, let's find out together. Are Trump's trials civil or criminal? So we can figure it out. We go through it. I don't think that the sensitive documents is probably. I think it's both. So this is saying various investigations, legal actions, including civil and criminal. So yeah, the dogs don't they don't like what the Department of Justice has done. All right. Yeah. It's kind of I think what they're doing is gonna backfire because a lot of their stuff does. And you know what? I'm not even sure. Like, what's the theory on killing American cities? Is that foreign interests? Is that Soros taking a bet against American currency? And then that's his way of driving it down? Is it just a natural occurrence? When you legalize drugs the way they did. That's crazy. I mean, it was an experiment, right? Other places they do it, but they also do it in a way where they help you get off those drugs. I think there's counseling and treatment, and that's like the part that we left out here, which is the important part. I don't know. When did we get on the darkest timeline? I've been playing with this idea for a book. I don't know if it's the darkest timeline. I think that we might have got on this darkest timeline after World War II, when Operation Paperclip, when we invited Nazis into our home, so to speak, right? I mean, bad things are going to happen. And I think eventually people forgot that these guys were Nazis. At the time, life just kind of marched on. And then you have Werner von Braun at NASA and a bunch of other guys folded in that we don't even know about. And then slowly but surely we start making these decisions to do things like, for president. Like, I'm talking about Kennedy, or, as the attorney general was his brother, or civil rights leader, maybe. Maybe the government was involved in those things, it seems like. And the funny thing is the government's owning up to, I didn't know this before, but did you know that the moon landing, I don't know if it's faked or not, but they had a plan to fake it. They carried through with that plan. That's a movie that's coming out soon, I think. The movie coming out is Take Me to the Moon or something, Fly Me to the Moon. Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. And it's about faking going to the moon. Yeah, I don't know. Crazy. So this may be a good place to end it until this afternoon when the senators are sworn in. They might do it, very sneakily, and I might not be perched and ready to stream. But I can always just go back and we can have like a 10-minute delay. That's actually sometimes preferable. Some of these guys drone on. So I think that's it's good. It's good as a place as any. I'll take care. I'll see you next. I really appreciate everybody coming in. Appreciate everybody subscribing, liking. It's been amazing. Remember, knowledge is power. Subscribe for more. I'll see you soon. See you in a couple hours.